hit record. All right, go ahead, Sam.
Hi, this is Sam Liebowitz, and this is Your Superior Self.
You sound like you've been on radio your entire life. I don't know why. Why is that, Sam?
Maybe just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit.
Conscious consultant up in the house. Sam, thank you so much for joining the show. This is amazing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Trey, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
So, what are you up to these days? What do you got going on in your world?
Well, it's been pretty busy, actually. I run an internet radio station, oddly enough. And during this whole craziness, it really started to take off. Lots of people getting referred to me, lots of new hosts, new programs on the show. So, we just brought a bunch of new shows on. So, getting them all settled, but I got a lot of big plans for this year. And yeah, it's been keeping me pretty busy.
How do you start like that type of network? Like, how does that even work?
Well, people always ask me how to get into this, and I always have to say I met a guy at a party, right? Typical New York story. It's like I met a guy at a party, and a mutual friend of ours kind of brought him there and said, "Sam, you got to talk to my friend Giorgio." And he had a shaved head, and I could tell he's a little awkward in a social situation. So I was like, "Hey, Giorgio, I'm Sam. Like, what do you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm an acupuncturist." And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. I know different practitioners, but I don't know too many acupuncturists." And then in the next breath, he says, "But I've decided to become a Buddhist monk, and I'm selling off all my worldly goods." And I'm like, "Oh, that's different." Then I continue talking to him, and he says, "Oh yeah, and I started this internet radio station." I'm like, "Wait a minute, this sounds familiar. Acupuncturist radio station?" It's like, "What's your name again?" He says, "Giorgio Rapetti." And I was like, "You're Giorgio Rapetti. I know who you are because my friend Larry Sharp does a radio show on your network, and he's told me about you, but he's never put the two of us together." And there he is standing right in front of me.
Wow. Wow. That is insane. So you talk about that, right? So what is like we had a long conversation before this interview. Ginger Johnson actually put us in contact. She's like the greatest
Yes.
connector I've ever met in my life. Shout out to
Yeah,
Ginger. You are the best
absolutely.
connector,
Go
Ginger.
Ginger.
And we had this great conversation, a great like down there. Well, I guess it wasn't down to earth. It was more spiritual based. I mean, that's where I'm headed. Like, and you, the conscious consultant, like, what is that brand? Like, what is that? Like, people see that they see the conscious consultant. Like, what does that mean for them?
Well, I kind of talk about it in terms of bringing like ancient wisdom into modern times. There's a lot of people out there who like they know the typical solutions to problems and how you're supposed to live your life and do all these things. It just doesn't work. It's not working. I mean, this whole pandemic showing it's like the way we're treating the earth, the planet, each other, our health, it's not working. And so they come to this point where, like, I don't know what the truth is, but I'm open.
Hmm.
And when they're open, there's my in. That's when I can really start to work with people. And the way it kind of came about is also kind of interesting because I had been, early in my life on a very spiritual path. And for various reasons, I got away from it. Went kind of south after a while, and I just had to get away from it for my own sanity. And then for a long time, I didn't know what to believe in. I didn't know what was true. And so I just kind of focused on making money. And then I became an entrepreneur, and I was even teaching other people like how to start your own small business. And I started becoming a mentor and a consultant and helping people. And then I always like to say the universe is going to have its way with you, whether you want it to or not. And slowly but surely, it kind of nudged me back onto this path. And I started taking these healing workshops that I learned about through some personal development stuff. And I wasn't really taking them because I ever in a million years thought of myself as a healer or that I could help people to heal. I was doing it more just for my own healing because I knew there was a lot of stuff going on underneath that just needed to be healed. And then there was that one workshop where they teach you some method, they pair you up, and I helped this woman release a condition she had had since she was 6 years old.
Hmm.
And it was like the light bulb went off. It's like, oh, it's like this isn't just for me to help myself. Like, I can use this to help other people. And it was like, what do I do with this? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business guy. What do I do with this? And I just kind of sat with it for a while. And it's like, well, I'm still some kind of consultant. I'm just a different kind of a consultant. I'm a consultant that works on people's consciousness, their energy, their awareness. And so that's really what I do when I work with people. It's all about, what are the underlying energetic patterns going on? What do we need to transform them and show people that they really are the creator of their life and not a victim to it?
Mm. How do you gather that information? Is it like a questionnaire? Is it like you get this sense? Is it like how does that what does that look like, the logistics of that?
It's usually just a conversation, and I ask a bunch of questions. And because I've worked on my intuition for so long, I kind of feel into it, and I'll use my intuition a bit. Like, I was working with this one client, and he's having all this trouble with this guy in his office. And it's just like, so tell me about your relationship with your dad. How's that going? And then turns out there was all these problems with his dad, and it was showing up. It was exact same kind of relationship, just showing up differently in his office with this other person, but same energetic pattern. Now, I consciously maybe had a little suspicion, but I was more just following the feel behind it, that feels like this could be something pretty basic, pretty primal in his life. And so of course I went, straight to the dad.
Yeah, no. I find that people, especially in life, like our problems or situations continuously come around like in a circle unless we deal with them properly. And that's like life. Life is going
Yep.
to keep coming back around if you
And
don't
if we
handle
don't
it
learn our
correctly.
lessons, it's going to come back with a 2x4
Exactly.
upside your head.
But that's the thing. You see people in relationships a lot of times, right? Like even like marriages where they're like immediately their first instinct is like, we got to, I'm done, like I can't be with you anymore. And sometimes it's fair that sometimes depending on the situation that is where they should go, but most of the time it's like getting another spouse or getting another girlfriend is not the answer. Vice versa, getting another boyfriend or another husband is not going to solve that problem, because usually it's within you and you're not facing it and trying to solve it or try to work through it. You're just building up more karma or building up more negative energy that eventually you're going to have to confront. But if you don't, then it's just going to keep reoccurring down the line.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, exactly. It's like we need. I mean, look, I'm a big believer. I don't think karma is here to punish us. There's some people kind of have this kind of conception that, like, karma is you do something bad and something bad's going to happen to you. That's not my perspective on it. It's about learning and growing. And I'm a big believer. Life is here to serve us. It's not here to punish us. And so these situations keep coming around because there's something we need to heal within ourselves.
Mhm.
Once we shine a light on what's going on, once we really see the truth of it and accept ourselves for who we were in that, whatever that situation is, that then we can move through it, and the energy can disperse, and then we can go on to the next level. As a friend of mine likes to say, it's the never ending PhD of life.
Yeah, you're definitely gaining some experiences, let me tell you. What are some of the methods though that you use to help people get through that junk, that stickiness of life? How do you like? What are some methods that you use to help them cope?
Well, I'm trained in a certain shamanic tradition as a facilitator. That one I use with people for, like, really deep work. I use energy medicine. I use my intuition, and I mean, I've been a law of attraction practitioner. I have a ton of tools and techniques. I've gone to so many workshops and seminars that there's just like a ton of it sitting back here in my head. And it's more finding, like, what is going to be the thing that
Mm,
serves the person in the moment. So really my greatest tool is presence.
mm,
It's being really, really present with the person in front of me or on Zoom with me. What are they saying? How are they breathing? What is their body doing? And then kind of going with that in terms of Well, is it something more mental? Is it something more physical? Is it more emotional or more spiritual? And then depending on where is the main characteristic of that, that will take me different places. And so, I mean, basic things I give to people: meditate. And meditate does not mean you have to sit cross legged on the floor burning incense and a candle lit. Meditation is just about sitting still for 5 minutes. You can just focus on your breath and just breathe in and out, and whatever thoughts come, they come, they go, they go. You know, people have this image of meditation as being like, oh, this thing, I can't do meditation. You All you need to do is sit still and just be with yourself. So meditation is one. A gratitude practice in the morning, a victory log at night, and you know, visualizations. I mean, there's tons and tons of all kinds of different things. It really depends, what is the person really dealing with.
Mm, man, that's some good stuff. Good toolage. I mean, shamanic practices. Like what? Like, are you like talk about that? Like, so you're facilitating those. Like, what does that look like?
I just started recently. I just graduated in the fall, and it's a very interesting tradition that just kind of appealed to me, because this gentleman who's a lineage holder from Peru had come here way back, like in the late 60s, early 70s, and was trying to bring these indigenous traditions here. And at the time, people were like doing LSD and, you know, tripping out and doing all kinds of stuff. They weren't interested in it. So he went back and got a couple of PhDs in Peru, and then came back and he studied like sociology and anthropology and psychopharmacology. And he created this sort of very modernized version looking at indigenous traditions from around the world, and created a sort of ceremonial practice that we typically do, you know, in an evening, overnight, on a weekend, where, you know, you don't have to be on a special diet for 3 weeks. You don't have to, you know, do any crazy stuff, but you can have a very deep experience. And yeah, you're going to be a little tired the next day, but then Monday morning you can get up and go to work. You can still function. You know, you don't really have to like disrupt your life so much to transform and change. And so it's one that appeals to me because I grew up in New York City. I'm very much a modern guy, but I do have such a deep appreciation for indigenous traditions, you know, ancient wisdom, and the rituals that we tend to just think of as superstition, and how they can really serve us if we allow them to.
Have you had your first ceremony?
Yep, did it New Year's Eve.
How was that? How'd that go?
It was great. It was great. I mean, because I'm doing it, you do it in person, and I wanted to be very careful. It was just my wife and two of her friends, and we all got tested like for COVID the day before, and everyone came back negative. We found I was actually we were, because the rates were going up, we are actually going to cancel the ceremony. But then her best friend who lives in our building, she found this van in our neighborhood that was like, you didn't have to wait 3 hours to get tested. You just had to wait online for like 20, 30 minutes. They tested you right then and there, PCR test, send it to their lab, and you could get the results the next day. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
The
So
times we
we
live
all
in.
went and got
Wow.
tested, and it's like, okay, we're all clean. We're all good. We're good to go.
I'm here for the
And
shamanic journey. Hold on. Did you get COVID tested? Like, it's just such a weird time that we live in now, right? Like,
I
just say
know.
that. Like, I'm here for the shamanic journey. Did you get COVID tested yet?
Hey, and it's a big deal. Now, I've talked with different practitioners who have different opinions on things. And some people I feel are a little reckless. They're like, fear is the biggest virus. Like, yeah, but you do want to take at least certain precautions, because it may be a virus, but you don't know what kind of fear people are living with. You don't know what they could bring in. And if you've got a group of people together, you want to be mindful of that.
You got to protect yourself and others, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got to do that. You got to get COVID tested. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like, it
I
is the
mean, I
times.
cannot tell you how many stories I've heard of people getting infected because they or their spouse or their children went to some holiday party or Christmas gathering or Thanksgiving or something like that, And one person there happened to have just come back from travel, didn't have any symptoms, and got everybody sick.
Yep. Yep. And then there you are. um, let's talk about the law of attraction facilitation. Um, oh man, were you always a believer in that? Like, or did something happen in your life that kind of pointed you in that direction? Like, I'm so like I'm torn between law of attraction. Like, I feel like I'm not talking like manifest. I'm not talking about the Lamborghinis and the cash and whatever, the gold chains and all that. I'm talking about like, subtle change. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
not.
well, it always just resonated with me. It was always something that kind of like I just got it. However, I didn't fully appreciate it until I heard this one piece from Abraham. And I went and I actually saw Esther Hicks channeling Abraham live up in Connecticut one time. And I don't remember if it was at that time or was it on a video. I think it was on a video where Abraham was talking about raising your vibration. But what Abraham said was the most important thing is that you use all this stuff as visualizations, as motivations, as something just to get you into the vortex or get you into that higher vibration, into that better feeling place, to the point that it's irrelevant whether it actually manifests in your life. That the important part is what Abraham was saying. The important part was feeling good. The important part was feeling how good it would feel for you to have this thing that you think you want. And that when you get into that good feeling place, you actually don't need the physical manifestation. And so what it is law of attraction, the whole stuff around it, most people take a very superficial surface approach to it. But to me, it's actually a very spiritual practice. It's just too many people use it to get stuff, which is completely missing the mark. It's not about getting stuff. It's about keeping our energy up. It's about visualization. It's about, that higher energy, which when we embody that energy, good things just naturally happen to us.
Mm, you're so right on with that too. Because like you go out into the world in this higher vibration, like you're automatically going to attract things. Like you go out there and you're in a great mood, and the people that are just just in this crudging, like I don't know, this attitude towards you, like, it's not gonna bother you. You're gonna, like, continue to go down that sidewalk still skipping and, like, "I'm having a great day. I don't care," like, but you start
Well,
attracting more people that are coming towards you that are, like, wanna
right.
be around that energy, right? Like, you're carrying that energy with you.
Exactly, exactly. Because think about it. What kind of people are you attracted to? Fun, happy, energetic people, right?
Yeah.
So if that's who you're attracted to, who do you think they're attracted to? People who are fun, energetic, and happy. So if you want to have more people like that in your life, you just need to embody those qualities, those very qualities that attract yourself, and you're going to attract more of that stuff, more
Mm.
of people who are like that. So it's the same thing. It's like your relationship with money. Like, do you have a good relationship with money? Like, are you joyful and happy about it? Or is it a worry? Is it a concern? Are you always worried about losing it or not making enough or this or that? So if you have a stressful relationship with money, money's going to feel pretty stressful to be with you. But if you have a joyful, fun, and grateful relationship with money, you can spread it around, you can do all kind of wonderful things with it, and then you feel good about it, and so it's going to naturally flow to you, because money is merely a representation of our energy, right? When we go to the store and we buy something, it took our energy to earn that money, and what we're saying is, oh, that jacket over there, I really like it, I'm going to give you some of my energy so I can get the energy it took you to create that jacket, because I really like the way it looks on me.
I never even thought about that, like, you're exchanging energy for that energy. Like, I never thought about it like that. I just
All an energy exchange.
that
Absolutely.
that is crazy. That is crazy. So talk more about Esther Hicks. You said you went and saw her live.
Yep.
What was that experience like?
Oh, that was amazing. It just to be like in this room filled with, I mean, there's probably 250 people there, and just watching her work with people individually, even if you never got to the hot seat, which is like, when she picks on someone from the audience, you get up there. But I mean, it's inevitable. Like whatever she's saying to the person in the seat, it's like, oh my God, it's like Abraham's talking to me. So it was wonderful, and just you could feel the energy of room. Everyone was so upbeat and so excited and so positive. It just being around people like that felt so good.
Did you say did you have one-on-ones with her at all or no?
No, 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 no,
No.
no. I was just in the crowd.
Oh man, I can only imagine. I would be worried. I listen to a lot of her on YouTube, so it's like I
Hmm.
listen to. I mean, you're exactly right. Like whatever she answers, like her answers to people in the hot seat, or what I need to hear for that day. It's just
Yep,
crazy. Abraham
absolutely.
Abraham is he's fire, man. He is straight fire. He definitely says some things that I need to hear on a daily basis.
And if you really like Abraham, actually, a lot of the I don't know what I'd call it. The forebearer of Abraham was Seth. there was
Seth,
this there was this woman by the name of Jane Roberts who started channeling this entity called Seth, and there's tons of books written by her, the Seth material and other stuff. And if you look at that stuff, you'll see like a lot of the Abraham stuff, it's like the same kind of energy as that, but Seth gets into many other topics, not just law of attraction and manifestation, but many, many other topics. And it's very deep and rich. And that's the thing, I think, because when I was in college, I was exposed to some of the writings of Seth, and that's when I first started getting on all to the spiritual stuff. So then, when I learned about Abraham later on, it was like, oh yeah, of course, this is like Seth 2.0.
sure. I like Seth. They're very organized with the way that they write those books. Like they have start times, end times. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
very meticulous about how they presented the content because
right,
they wanted to be professional and they wanted to make sure that everybody knew who was speaking and who when Jane was speaking and when Seth was speaking.
right, right.
Because she totally changed when she was speaking as Seth. I mean, like her entire body physically was different.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
much more so than when Esther is channeling Abraham. There's a slight difference, but not as marked a difference. But when Jane, and you can hear some of the audio still, you can still find them. When you hear Jane, her voice, the timbre of her voice changes. There's an accent. There's the tone. It's just you can feel like there's a different entity speaking when you listen to her.
Yeah, and then some people are listening like, "What are you talking about? Like, why are you guys talking about channel?" Like, but that's the thing, right? Like, I feel like we can get in touch with the higher consciousness that allows different, non-physical beings to come through and help us and coach us. And
Look, if non-physical beings is like too difficult a concept for you to get, because I like keeping things very approachable and practical, think of it just as archetypes. Jung talked about the collective unconscious and all of these archetypes that exist, that are sort of, because people believe in things in common, it creates an archetype. And so I just kind of say, if it's too woo woo for you, just think it about somebody getting in touch with an archetype, a symbolic representation of a certain energy, and then bringing that through them.
mm,
I mean, look, it's how common. Like, there's certain symbolism in dreams that's common across cultures. There's certain things that happen. I mean, look, why is like smiling a good thing, right? Among certain animals, you smile, they think you're going to attack,
because of the teeth.
right? Because you're showing your teeth. But between human beings, we may not understand a word the other person is saying because they're from like halfway around the world, but you smile and they smile back at you, and it's like, oh, okay, they're friendly. Right? So there's
Yeah.
certain common things that go beyond what we can comprehend with our mind, because we're not just a mind. In the Western world, we've so glorified the intellect and the mind, we've put it up on a pedestal. We praise it. We think it makes all the best decisions for us. And the truth is, our mind sometimes makes very lousy decisions and it never apologizes. And we're more than just a mind. Our body does not stop at our neck. We have a body that has an incredible intelligence to it. We have our heart, our emotions, which has a different kind of intelligence to it. And then yes, there's our spiritual side. There's our spirit, our inspiration, our connection to all that is, that has a different perspective and energy to it as well. So I like to show people how, when we're in harmony with those four different aspects, and when we learn to dance between the four of them, depending on what the situation is, which one is most appropriate, that then we can actually be more fully actualized as human beings. If we're connecting with another person, we want to be in our hearts. When we need to work out and create more energy, we need to be more in our bodies. When we're trying to get inspiration or develop our imagination, then we need to really connect with spirit. And yeah, if we need to do a business plan or a budget, or we're crunching numbers, yep, then you want to use the mind.
Mm.
But the mind isn't the only form of intelligence we have. As a matter of fact, scientists are now discovering we have tons of neurons in our heart, we have tons of neurons in our gut, neurons in the brain. Well, we actually have three brains, not just one brain.
Yeah, I think they said like there's 40,000 neurons that are, neuron-like things that are in the heart alone. So like
Mhm.
40,000, like that's
There's even more in the gut, believe it or not.
yeah. The brain, heart, and gut minds. Yeah. Um, I mean, I don't even know where I was going to go with that.
Sorry,
No, you're
rambled on
good.
for a minute there.
No, you're good. But I think that the heart, that's where I wanted to go. It's all about the heart and what you feel when you hear things, right? Like, when exactly, like, people don't want to hear that they're intuitive, but when you feel kind of icky about someone, right? Like you think they're, oh, this guy's a little, he doesn't seem right, right? Like you just feel like
Yeah, but that's not
there's off.
necessarily heart. That could be your body,
Hmm.
right? Remember that there's our body has an intelligence that we don't access through complex words or anything, but we access through very simple expansive feeling, contractive feeling, an uh-huh or an uh-uh, or a splenic intelligence, as someone calls it. So sometimes when you just get an icky feeling from someone, that's not your heart, that's your body telling you it's cringing, it's getting on guard, because there's something about that person's energy that your body is picking up, your nervous system is picking up, that just doesn't feel quite right.
Mm. Well, but we have that, right? That's in my opinion, that is a part of an intuition. That is a part of your, you can't put your finger on it, but you know that it's some bad vibes coming from that
Right,
person.
right.
And that is like, if you don't listen to that, something probably is going to end up,
Hmm.
you're probably
Yep.
going to end up like robbed or something, like, I don't know, something bad. But,
No, they could take advantage of you. They could, con you. It doesn't have to be necessarily so
I mean,
direct. And that, and
you have that feeling like that. I mean,
right,
that feeling, right? It's like
right,
deja vu, right? Like deja vu is
yeah.
a certain type of, was it not precognition? Is it precognition? Is it where you have like the vision before it happens? Like I always like, oh, that's kind of weird. You should be thanking the universe every time you have like one of those deja vu moments. Like that is like, you
Absolutely.
know what I mean? Like I never even thought
Yep.
about that. Like, thank you
Yeah.
for
I mean,
giving me this vision.
to me, deja vu is kind of the universe's way of telling us time is not linear. It's like this feeling that, oh, I've done this before. And you maybe not have done it before, but you might have connected to that moment. And I know, not so much as an adult, but I remember as a kid growing up, especially when I think was in high school, but there were, I think, about two or three times where I had a very vivid dream, and the very next day, what I dreamed just happened. And it wasn't anything dramatic or anything. It was just something very mundane. But it was like, because I dreamed it the night before and then I experienced it, I was like, I had this feeling of deja vu. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I dreamt this last night. And so that to me is just is like this little wink from the universe kind of saying, hey, things aren't quite as linear as you think they are.
Oh man, that Lanier, that'll get you. Um, Now you talked about Seth and you talked about Abraham. Is there anybody else that's been out there that's been influential on you and your beliefs, or not beliefs, but like knowing?
Yeah, yeah. There's this wonderful woman. I consider her a friend of mine. Her name is Jennifer Huff. and she is just totally tuned in with the universe, and when she works with people, she can like see your hologram. And when I wrote my book Everyday Awakening, there's actually one section in it which is my homage to her, because about 2 3 years ago I went to a weekend down in Asheville to work with her, and like almost immediately one of the first things out of her mouth that just totally resonated with every cell of my body was when she said, life happens for us, not to us.
Mm.
And I was just like, boom. I was like, I'm all in. I totally get it. It's like I knew it as a fundamental truth, but I never languaged it that way. And when she said it that way, I was like, oh, and I use it all the time
Life happens for
for
you,
us,
not
not
to you.
to us.
That's yeah, I mean, happens for you, happens for you. I mean, I say that quite a bit, but I'm trying to understand the meaning because it is powerful. Like,
So to me, when we say life happens to us, we're then a victim to life.
mm,
But when we say life happens for us, we're not a victim. We're actually being supported, and it's much more empowering, and it helps us to feel like we can actually be a creator.
creating our own
So,
reality.
right.
Mm,
And we create our own reality all the time. We create it with the decisions we make, with the energy we bring to things, with our attitudes, with how we show up, with our actions. With all of that, we create our life. And our life is our reality. We don't know anything different.
well, you talked about hologram, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
that you can read your hologram. Can you explain that? Like, what do you mean by hologram?
So, a hologram is a very interesting thing, and I was first exposed to it when my first year of college. I actually worked part time in the student lab in the physics. I was a physics major my first year of college, and I actually had the opportunity to create a hologram with someone. And the thing is that a hologram is a very quantum physics product. Now, with a hologram, it's you use lasers to create it, and you basically split a laser beam and you highlight an image in front of a special type of film, and then you light it up from the back. And what happens is the special film, the image is you not just seeing it from one angle. It's not flat. You can like tilt it different ways and you see it at a different angle. Now, these holographic plates, they're like solid plates. The one that I like to use, which is an obvious example a lot of people know about, is on your credit cards. Like if you have the Visa card, there used to be, I don't think they have the bird anymore, but there's a little bird,
Yeah.
hologram of a bird on the back. Now, if you went to like the Visa headquarters where they had the original hologram of the bird and you looked at that plate, and if by accident you dropped the plate on the floor and it broke into 100 pieces, what would you think normally of, like, you have a picture of something, it breaks in 100 pieces. What are you going to find if you pick up one of the pieces?
A piece of that picture.
Right. You think maybe I got the foot of the bird or the
Huh.
beak or the tail. But with a hologram, you pick up a piece and you actually see the entire image.
Hmm.
You just maybe see it from a little different angle, and it might be a little fuzzy because you don't have quite as much data. But basically, the idea behind a hologram is in every piece, there is an aspect of everything else, of the whole.
Hmm.
And so, and there are physicists who have written books. There's a book by I think it's Green, who wrote The Holographic Universe, which basically talks about how, like, in every aspect of the universe, there is the aspect of the whole rest of the universe. Now, it sounds very woo woo, and it sounds like very esoteric, mystic, ancient mystic language, which it is. The Hindus talked about this thousands and thousands of years ago. But from a very practical level, it's also true, because if our theory of how the universe got started with the Big Bang is right, everything was compressed into one small tiny dot until it exploded and it went out, and then everything developed after that. And that literally you and I, we're made of stardust.
Mm.
Everything around us is the dust of an exploded star or of gases coming together. Where did all that come from? Well, it came from the Big Bang. It came from that singularity that exploded one day. So we were all there. Every little molecule, atom, everything that was in creation was there in that entirety. And so now we're just separated out into this multitudinous, but in every little thing, there is an aspect of everything else. I mean, didn't you ever think it's kind of weird that the way an atom looks with a nucleus in the middle and electrons hovering around it is exactly the way the solar system looks? I mean, is this just
Yeah.
is it only me that thinks
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird coincidence?
No, no, I think it's a lot of people. I think we're just scared to think like that, right? Like, I mean, it's just we're just so programmed, right? Like we don't want
Well,
to be
it,
uncomfortable.
it's scary because if we really understand like the depth of this, of how we're all interrelated, then you know what? Then we are our brother's keeper. Then we are responsible for the health of the planet. Then we can't be selfish. We can't just think about ourselves anymore, because you're not only my brother, you're an extension of me. You're just another aspect of me. How can I do any harm towards you?
No,
And so because it challenges the way we've grown up and the way society has developed over the centuries, that's a very fear-based, scarcity-based, power-based kind of dynamic, and it doesn't have to be that way. Society could be founded on presence, on connection, on love, on many other principles, not on power and scarcity and fear.
no,
But when we come to understand like the truth of what the real way things work, and the real truth about how we are so interconnected on a very fundamental level, right? Then can we ever cheat anybody? Can we be mean to somebody? How can we be mean? We're being mean to ourselves.
yeah.
And
It's funny is I had a meditation this morning, and I was meditating and having a conversation with God. That's what I like to think of it, and it's very subjective because it's my experience. But I said to God while I was meditating, I said, "I love you, God," and I heard a voice back that says, "Well, if you love me, you love yourself."
Mhm,
You know what I mean? Like, and it's just
absolutely.
funny how you're talking about that because it's like how if you look at everyone at a soul level, it cannot you cannot help but build this compassion for people because you see them as yourself. You see them. I see you, Sam, as an aspect of me, and the
Mhm.
things that I don't like about you is probably things that I don't like about myself. It's like that
Always.
mirror image of me
Not even
projecting myself.
probably, always.
Always.
Always. Maybe not in the aspect in the way it manifests in me, because it might be a mirror image, so it could be the opposite. Or it could be like I remember I had a client once who was so upset at their parents because they were so cheap with people, and they felt, oh, they're so cheap, I'm so generous with my friends and this and that. And I said to them, yeah, well, how generous are you with your family? And they were like, oh. Or how generous are you with yourself? Oh. So sometimes it doesn't manifest the exact same way, but the energy of it, the essence of it manifests somehow, always. Because it's all anything that's a trigger, it's a trigger because it's something about ourselves that we don't like. Because if it wasn't within us, it wouldn't trigger us. It would be like we'd laugh at it. It would be, oh, that's silly.
Well, how has this helped you? Like, as a facilitator, you've been able to do these things for other people, but how does it help you as a soul, like as a spirit? Like, do you have to go somewhere else to have your healing?
Well, I mean, the whole last, I don't know, 15, 20 years of my life have been just one long healing path. Um, and for me, working with people is very healing. And it's helping somebody else get past something really difficult, or heal from some trauma, or find their own spiritual path that in some way I inspired them to me, that just makes me feel so good. It makes me feel like, yes, I'm living my life's mission, and I will leave the world at least a little bit better than I found it when I came in.
Mm,
And to me, that's the most satisfying feeling of all.
mm.
And
Wow.
it's true because we feel so good when we do something for somebody else. And when we do it for ourselves, it can be nice, but it doesn't have the same effect.
No, it seems like the energy that that wholeness that you feel for helping others lasts a hell of a lot longer than if you do something for yourself. It
Right.
does. I mean, it just. I mean, I can. I mean, I for days, like I'll feel good about doing something for someone else, and it's not like one of those. Oh, look at me, you know. But I
Yeah.
don't even need recognition for it. I just know in my soul that I did it, right? Like I know that I
Right.
did it, you know, non-selfishly, right? Like,
Mhm.
how? A more important question: how has this helped your relationship with your wife?
Ah, well, I tell you, I've been married now 17 going on 18 years, and it hasn't always been easy, but our relationship, we have one of the best relationships out of anybody we know.
Mm,
We have a really good life together, and we can talk to each other about anything. And we both really appreciate each other because we're really different. I mean, she's a Taurus, I'm an Aquarius Pisces cusp. She's totally grounded, and I'm completely up there in the clouds.
mm.
And and it's funny because people who've met us over the years are like, how are the two of you married? You're so different, you're so opposite. But that's sometimes what we need. It's that compliment. It's those things that we're missing. And so, I mean, are there difficult times? Does she trigger me? Do I trigger her? Absolutely. But overall, we're very happy. And when we look around at other people around us, yeah, maybe we don't have as much money as some people. Yeah, maybe we don't have, all the things we would like. But when we see what they have, a lot of them might not have somebody special in their life. Some of them are not as happy. We don't have children, and God bless the people who do have children, but it's given us the ability to just focus on each other and not some third entity that we had to take care of in a relationship.
Sure. Um, has she always, I mean, has she been like open to your spirituality? Like, is she in the same boat? Does she have the same thoughts? Is she open-minded?
She's very open-minded. She's a therapist, she's a psychotherapist, but she's clinically trained. However, she's Chinese. She comes from China, very practical people.
Sure.
So back when I was like first getting back on my spiritual path, which kind of happened after I got married, and in partially because of her. And once I started really getting into it, like she'd come to me with me every now and then to some of these like spiritual gatherings and healings and stuff. And she would always be very critical of the people there. She's like, oh, look at these spiritual people. They can't even like pay their bills. They have all this trouble. And so there was just something about it that always triggered her a little bit. However, when I got on this shamanic path and I started doing this shamanic work, that she got right away. She was very scared to try it, but once she did, it was the thing that she saw so much value in. And we've both changed so much because of that work. And externally, our lives may not look that differently, but internally, it feels completely different.
Yeah.
And so that is something she really has embraced and has supported me because I've done a lot more of the work than she has. And it's meant many nights being away from her and stuff like that. But she's always been very, very supportive of me of
Well, that
that.
could be some tough conversations before that, right? Like, why are you doing this? You know, because I feel like she, being a therapist, she probably has that Newtonian like outlook, right? Like, I mean, even though she has that Eastern background, but like, you know, as a scientist, you look at things differently, right? Like, you look at
Hmm.
causal and effect, right? You look at things that if you
Hmm.
can replicate that results, that's science. So, I mean, I'm sure that some of this conversations were tough to have at first, right? But
Oh yeah.
that's the point, is to have the conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tell you the funny story of just getting her to go. The whole story of how I got into it is just fascinating because the the weekend that I ended up going to my first shamanic ceremony, she happened to be away for the first time. She went away to a psychology conference that was in China. Now, that weekend, I was supposed to get together with a friend who disappeared on me. They ghosted me. I had nothing to do. A friend texts me on like Friday afternoon, hey, open heart community, open house tonight. Come to my friend's place and meet him. And I look at the address and it's 7 blocks away from where I live. So I'm like, how, I don't have anything else to do. Why not? It's so close. So I go, I meet all these people. I meet the facilitator. I get a good feeling from waiting for my friend to show up. He finally shows up, kind of tells me what it's all about. And I'm like, nah, it's okay. I've done so much work, all this other stuff. I'm not really that interested. But then I'm walking the 7 blocks back to my apartment. I'm thinking to myself, this is like the only weekend in the entire year that I actually have space to say yes, because my wife's not around. I don't have any plans, nothing to do. So why don't I go? I can go once. And if I don't like it, I didn't know anybody there except my friend. I'll never have to see any of these people again. So I go, I have this huge experience. I mean, things that came up for me, nothing that wasn't conscious of, but it was just like I released the energy of it. It wasn't just talking about it. It wasn't, but I released the energy of it. And so then when she came back, and she was away, so I didn't have a chance to tell her anything about it. But as soon as she came back, she could feel my energy is different. And she started responding to me to a little differently. And so I was like, well, they're doing another ceremony next month. Why don't you come with me? I think you'll really like it. Da, da, da. It's like, no, 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 I don't do those kinds of things. Da, 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 da. And lots of resistance, 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 until finally she was like, okay, if you can get a bit of a discount, if we can go as a couple, I'll come. I'm like, okay. I call up the guy. I'm like, hey, if I bring my wife next time, can I get a bit of a break on the price? And he's like, yeah, sure. What do you want to pay? And I say, how about this much? And he goes, yeah, no problem. I'm like, okay, great. So I tell her that night, hey, I talked to the guy. He said, sure, no problem. And I could tell she's stone cold, but energetically underneath, she was like, damn, because I took away
Mhm.
her excuse. But then those last 2 weeks leading up to the ceremony, she's like nervous, anxious. Oh, no, I can't do this. Da, da, da. I have problems sleeping in other people's homes. I can't do it. And literally up until the day we're supposed to go out to Brooklyn. And that day she goes, I can't stay. We have to come back at night. I need to get my sleep. I have all this work to do. I have this report to write. And I could feel myself starting to get angry. I feel myself getting triggered and say something to her. And then all of a sudden, I hear this voice in the back of my head. I have never heard it as clearly before or since. Just say yes. Just get her there and don't worry, but we'll take care of the rest. I was like, okay. I was like,
Mhm.
honey, whatever you want to do, you want to come back in the middle of the night? We'll come back in the middle of the night. It's okay. I get her there. She's still very nervous. Ceremony starts in the evening. I give her her space. We've done a lot of different things together, so we always give each other space. She calls me over in the middle of the night and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so pigheaded. Oh, of course, we're not going home in the middle of the night. I'm so sorry. It's like, it's okay, honey. It's fine. It's great.
That is
And
awesome.
and so it's just like that voice in the back of your head that like tells you, no, just chill about it. And I did, and everything worked out perfectly.
Oh man, yeah, I need to listen to that voice more often,
Yeah.
because it's so faint. It's like,
Yeah.
you're lucky in that situation you heard it so clearly, but
Yeah.
in everyone else's lives, I feel like it's just so. I mean, maybe not now with the way the pandemic has panned out, but before, definitely it was hustle and bustle, and it was like, I was trying to keep busy with everything, so that way I probably didn't hear that voice, and that's why
Right.
meditation's so important because
Yes.
you quiet down, you take that 10 minutes, and then you might be able to hear that voice.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And
Uh,
it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you may need to sit still, consistently for months till you get it. But
mhm.
once you get it, you'll never want to stop.
I know, right? And then I find myself like, and I'll admit this, I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. But before, I have 3 kids in the pandemic, like I found myself drinking a little bit more than I
Mhm.
usually do. It's just stress, right? Just,
Sure.
I'm relieving stress. But the more that I meditate, the more that I get there, the less that I want to drink because I'm
Right.
finding that I don't want to wake up. I don't want to lose that consciousness. Like I don't want to
Right.
get up and not experience that. So like I find myself cutting back, on having a beer or two at night because of the stress, because I know that in the morning I want to be the most clear-headed that I can be, so that way I can experience that spirituality, that I can
Hmm.
experience that voice,
Right.
so I can
Right.
experience God in my own subjective way.
Right.
I mean, it's been
Exactly.
so game changing for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I was never a big drinker, but I used to like a nice glass of wine and stuff, and I drink a little bit on occasion. Now,
Sure.
I still do, but very, very rarely, much more rarely, because I find now it's like if I have some alcohol, it actually just makes me tired. I mean, it relaxes you, but it makes you
Yeah.
tired. And then the next day, I'm not functioning as well. And I'm like, I just don't want that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, I definitely will have an IPA or something like that occasionally, but recently, I don't want it, like, I wanna feel clear, I wanna be able
Right,
to receive messages, I wanna be able to receive signs, I wanna be able to pick up on, idiosyncrasies that the world gives me. I wanna be able to enjoy that, and then, like, with a clear head, be able to process that. Like,
right,
it's so crazy. And like AA, you know, I can't remember the founder's name, but he actually was being seen by Carl Jung, and
right,
Jung
right,
was like, I don't have anything that I think is going to benefit you. Like, and he was like, well, what do I do? And, this is paraphrasing, but he's like, some people have sought out spirituality as a solution for them. And that's what the founder of AA did. He went and sought after spirituality, and that's what helped him with his alcoholism. Um,
and actually, what a lot of people don't know is he was one of also the very early people who tried LSD therapy for alcoholism, and he had was it LSD? No, it might have been a different drug, but it actually.
Well, it would make sense because of the experience that you have with LSD and
Right,
psilocybin and
right.
all those
Exactly, exactly.
mind altering.
But it was one of those indigenous plant medicines, I think, or LSD, and it really like shifted his thinking, and that was the start of opening him up towards a more spiritual thing as well.
I just got done listening to Ram Dass. Like,
Ah,
I just got done reading his latest book that just came out. I highly suggest everybody to pick it up. I think it's titled Being Ram Dass.
yeah,
It's his
yeah.
entire
I
life
haven't read it
story.
yet. I heard it's good.
Whew, man. But the thing that I always had this stigma, like, is psychedelics, is it the psychedelic that's doing it? And their philosophy is that it's actually the key that opens up your mind to consciousness. So it's not like that it's not the LSD actually giving you this stuff. It's actually the key that opens up your mind so that you can experience
Right.
consciousness in its fullest.
Right. And actually they find that the with psilocybin and ayahuasca and other things like that, it's the molecule DMT that's really doing it, but the body itself, the brain itself actually produces DMT in big quantities when you're born and when you die.
Mm,
So it's not necessarily an quote unquote unnatural state, but it's I think it's sort of allowing the mechanisms that suppress it to stop, so then what could naturally occur occurs.
yeah. No, there's a big effort going on in Baltimore right now. Johns Hopkins is has a
Yes.
privately funded section in it that is researching,
Yep.
all of this, right? Like, I
Yep.
mean,
No,
it's just
Maps has done some. The organization Maps has done some incredible work. They're in phase 3 trials for both, I believe, MDMA and psilocybin. Psilocybin has already gotten breakthrough status by the FDA and is on track within the next couple of years to um, be have be legalized for medical situations for treating depression, anxiety, and a whole slew of other things. So
yeah,
it's
PTSD, all of that.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how more and more research is being done, and this whole underground world of plant medicines and psychedelics and these ethnogenics medicines is actually thriving quite a bit
Sure,
in recent times.
sure. Sam, this has been nothing short of amazing. I want to thank you. But first, how can people connect with you?
Sure. If people want to get in touch with me, my website is theconsciousconsultant.com. And you can email me directly at sam@theconsciousconsultant.com.
Lastly, Sam, what do you want your legacy to be?
Hmm.
I
My
know it's a tough
legacy
one.
is the community of people whose lives I've touched, that hopefully I've inspired them to touch other people's lives in a positive, supportive, empowering manner.
Mm, beautifully said. Sam, thank you so much for joining the show, brother.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on, Trey. Really appreciate it. Thank you.